Hi, welcome to No Preservations. My name is Eric Chris, and I'm going to be making ceviche today. So with making ceviche, there are a couple of concerns we need to talk about. One is that we're not actually cooking fish with heat, and so we don't do any of the stuff that'll kill bacteria or parasites or any of the other nasty things that can make you sick. So if you come over here, I have kind of a quick demonstration to talk about this. And the most important part to this whole thing is that bad fish equals a bad time. All right? And we're going to talk about the two things that can actually give you a bad time. And one is going to be parasites, which are bigger, more complex multicellular organisms. And then we have our bacteria, which in ocean water especially, they've kind of adapted to colder temperatures. And so even at a refrigerator, these guys can still kind of ruin your fish and can still reproduce because they've adapted to those colder temperatures. Interestingly enough, we can actually get rid of parasites because they're larger and more complex by freezing them. And so we're going to imagine that this lightsaber here is an ice crystal, and we're going to try and kill these bacteria here really quick. See, can't kill them. However, if we take the lightsaber to the parasite, he's easily killed. So just like that, the ice crystals that are formed inside of the fish meat are going to stab through and they're going to kill all of these parasites. But what do we do about these little microbes, right? They cause a bigger problem because refrigerating them doesn't work. And so the key to this is that we need to get fish that are as fresh as possible. So if we come over here and we'll take a quick look at our fish selection. So we have several different types of fish here. We'll get into that and their flavors in a minute. But really the most important thing when looking for fresh fish is that it should kind of have a somewhat glossy texture. If it's really, really dull, it's kind of an indication that the outside of the fish has been harmed by bacteria and that some of the proteins on the outer layer are starting to degrade. Now you can wash that off and kind of treat the fish in a few different ways. However, you're paying essentially more money for ruined fish, and that's not a good thing. The next thing is that all of these fish should smell somewhat similar to either dry leaves or salt water if they're saltwater fish. And then lastly, an overly fishy aroma is actually caused by a molecule called TMA. And what this guy can do is he can go and he can react with other molecules in the fish, primarily double bonded fatty acids, and he can kind of make all kinds of weird aromas that lead to fishiness. Now in certain types of shellfish and certain types of fish, there's another molecule that this guy spontaneously degrades to called dimethylamine. Yeah, dimethylamine. And this guy is going to actually have a really, really strong ammonia smell. So if you've ever heard that you shouldn't eat crab or shellfish that smell like ammonia, this is the reason why, is that those guys readily convert the trimethylamine all the way down into dimethylamine, and that's an indication that they've kind of sat out too long and have started to spoil. Now, the last thing we'll talk about before we really get started here is going to be talking about some of the proteins that are involved in flavoring the fish. So here, if we come over here really quickly, we'll start from the top left and then work our way to the right. So this top one is actually our king salmon, and this guy is going to be, salmon is technically a white fish, but it gets its orangish color from a xanthan pigment that it gets from eating small crustaceans who eat primarily other types of plankton and green algae. The salmon actually sequester that pigment into their muscle, and that's what gives it this nice even pink color. This is more of an oily fish, which will be kind of interesting as we try and cook it with ceviche. Next up is our swordfish, and this guy is going to be a really, really high protein, dense type of fish that has relatively little fat in it. Kind of a medium color due to their large size, but the reason it has kind of this medium type to lighter color is that there's really not a whole lot of myoglobin in it. And myoglobin is this oxygen holding molecule that's common in other types of red meat that helps transfer oxygen to muscles that are used all of the time. Next up is our ahi tuna, And tuna are an interesting species of fish, but they are always swimming around the ocean looking for food or their next meal. And so these guys are always cruising, always devouring things, and as a consequence, we see that this is really, really red meat, and it's just packed full of that myoglobin. And our last fish on the list is this as our tilapia, which is also, again, kind of different from some of the other ones. This is a very, very lean and flaky fish. And it's expected that this one will probably cook a little bit better than the others in terms of its acid-base chemistry and everything else. Now we'll talk about kind of flavoring these, right? Salmon on its own kind of has a strong flavor due to some of the pigment molecules in its skin. Meanwhile, tilapia really doesn't have a whole lot of flavor. And then the ahi tuna and the swordfish have their flavors as well. So when we throw together this ceviche, we can kind of heavily season this tilapia, and it'll pick up all of the different flavors that we want from the marinade and from the other seasonings that we add. Whereas something like the salmon and the ahi tuna, we're gonna kind of leave to contribute their own flavors into the ceviche. And we'll do kind of a simpler marinade with lemon and green onion for the salmon, and then kind of more of a fruity mango for the ahi tuna. All right, so without further ado, we'll kind of get this started a little bit. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to chop this tilapia into 9 thin little slices. And these guys are going to be like little miniature steaks, but I'm gonna use this to kind of demonstrate how this lime juice can actually cook the fish similar to heating it, but without actually heating it. So we'll just cut these up into small pieces. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 to 9.
7, 8, and 9. All right. Now that we have those 9 separate pieces here, we're gonna just take kind of a quick look at them. And we'll think about each one of these as their own little individual fish steaks. And what's gonna happen is that in the marinade, there's an acid component that ordinarily, when we're marinating like white meat or red meat, it kind of breaks down the outer layer of proteins of that meat, and it also contributes a lot to the flavor and helps kind of cook later on. In fish, we don't really have as much connective tissue to kind of insulate the meat, and so what actually happens is when we add that acid component, it's going to readily break down the proteins in the meat, very much similar to heating up the meat. However, again, we're not using that element of heat, so this is a much, much more gentle process in terms of cooking and in terms of breaking down some of those things. Again, in fish, we don't necessarily have as much connective tissue as red meat or chicken, and so it's much, much easier to do this, although there is a Mexican dish that it does this with diced meat cubes from cows, and that's a different way that you could actually do this and cook with other things, but you just, again, have to look out for the parasites and look out for the bacteria as well. So I'm going to take these little steaks, and I'm going to leave one as a raw piece here, and I'm just going to put them in a bag. And I'm going to add in my lime juice from 3 limes for starters. And now that we've got that going, the citric acid from that lime is going to start breaking down those proteins and start cooking those fish. And we're going to see that in a couple of minutes. All right. See you guys soon.
Knife.
So one important thing about cutting these smaller is that if we cut smaller pieces, we make more surface area, and that's going to give more area for that lime juice to actually eat. And so in making this ceviche and trying to cook it more quickly, we can kind of cut these into smaller, thinner cubes. Okay. We need 2 more minutes. and after this, it'll relax a little bit more.
That's what she said.
We need to incorporate those. Got some lemons for the other thingy, and then yeah, we also have a grapefruit that we're gonna experiment with. Now the grapefruit doesn't have enough citric acid to actually, I'm gonna say this again later, but the grapefruit doesn't have enough citric acid to actually eat away at the fish and properly cook it like the lime and lemon do. However, it's great for adding in with either the lime or the lemon and giving a little bit of extra flavor. Yeah, flavor. Like Flavor Flav! Alright everyone, it's now been 2.5 hours in this project as far as creating ceviche goes. And right here, we kind of have our fish from this direction to this direction. We have completely raw tilapia to being only cooked by acid for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 15, 30, 45, 1 hour, 1 hour and 15 minutes, and then over here all the way on the far end is an hour and a half. Now when you start to get to an hour and a half, you feel that this is really, really rubbery, it really kind of bounces. So that would be like the equivalent of it being, yeah, it's too cooked at this point. Over here at the hour and 15, we still have this rubberiness. It's kind of crumbling and there's a little bit of weird discoloration. Start to get to an hour and we're still, yeah, even then, that's too much for the ceviche. 45 minutes, still really, really dry. This one starting to get a little bit better at a half an hour. This fish holds together really well. Still would have a nice soft interior, would taste delicious. And then here's our 15-minute piece that ended up being really, really fat. But this, I don't know, this would be kind of like the raw steak version of ceviche. So, and then over here we have what would just be too raw to really eat. So 0 to 5 minutes. Yeah, these fish still hold together really, really well. There's still a lot of connective tissue holding it all together. And when it's completely raw, you know, it's just dried out a little bit here, but you can see that, yeah, very much not cooked and has a nice fishy taste for my fingers. But that's it. Most recipes kind of recommend cooking the ceviche in lime juice or lemon juice for about 30 to 45 minutes. That tends to be the golden range, and if you want to cook it faster or have it a little bit more well done in that time, you can always slice smaller cubes of the fish. And if you make a smaller slices or smaller cuts of the fish, you make more surface area for the acid to kind of get in there and get around and cook the fish. Now, as we were kind of waiting for this experiment to get done, we actually kind of completed all of our ceviches here. So over here we have the tilapia served with a little bit of, oh, I can't remember what these peppers were. Oh well, a little bit of peppers, not jalapenos, they're not that spicy, but a little bit of peppers, red onions, cilantro, and kind of a nice little fiesta formation. Our swordfish, we decided to kind of cook in a mixture of lemon, lime, and grapefruit juice. So we're kind of expecting that one to have a little bit more of a sweeter flavor. And then we just kind of decorated this one with red peppers, cilantro, and a little bit of those green peppers. We left out the red onion there. This is the one I'm most excited for. You can see on our ahi tuna, right? It's lost a lot of that red color, and the outside is this kind of milkish white color. But this will be absolutely delicious, and we've kind of made this into a mixture of a little bit of cilantro, mango, and then some diced habaneros that we've removed the veins on. So this, yeah, I'm most excited for. And then our salmon mixture, we cooked the salmon purely in lemon. Interestingly enough, the salmon is actually the least cooked out of all of these. And that has to do with really the amount of oil in the skin of the salmon and in the fish itself. The oil is actually going to be resistant to kind of letting those acids penetrate into the fish. And so they kind of keep it a little bit more raw and require a little bit of extra cooking time. Yeah, I think that just about wraps it up. If you wanted to, really, as far as seasoning these fish or seasoning your ceviche goes, the sky's the limit. You can use different types of fruit. You can use passion fruit juice. There are some certain types of passion fruit and tropical fruits like kiwis and papayas that actually have enzymes that will start to digest the proteins in the fish as well. And then always kind of a classic, but we left it over on the side due to some allergies, is some guacamole and avocados to go in this as well. So All right, this is Eric Chris with No Preservations, and I'll be signing off. All right. So, are we?
Yeah.
Are we filming this? Are we filming?
Yeah.
Is it
Okay.
habanero?
So, because there are issues and concerns with time, and there's a leftover habanero pepper, my roommate has generously agreed to eat this habanero pepper for the last 30 seconds while we film this.
And they're giving me $500 to do it.
Yeah, nice. Not gonna happen. Anyway, appreciate it, buddy. Good luck.
Is it like hot?
I don't know.
So should I have like something to drink with it? Or?
Yeah, all right. I'll go pour you milk. You eat though.
Yeah, eat right now.
Go,
Put it in
go.
your mouth. Go, go, go. Woo!
Good, my man. Oh my God.
Can you show me your tongue?
Did it get hot?
Give me the milk. Give me the milk.
Give him the ball!
All right. You get some. Now I feel bad. That one has more habanero.
This one?
Yeah. So.